I believed her love could heal me, until I realized her love was just a mask hiding a lie. She used my heart as her weapon, but she forgot one thing: I never lose quietly. So when her betrayal surfaced, I didn't just expose her lies, I turned them into the truth. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, stay till the end, because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your truth. And hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. I used to believe that when love finally arrives, it silences all the noise in your heart. That's what it felt like when I met Lara Wynn. She had that calm in her voice that made the world seem less cruel. The kind of person who could make you forget the scars you once swore you'd never show anyone. I didn't fall in love all at once. It was slow, like a sunrise creeping over a city that had forgotten what light felt like. And before I knew it, I wasn't just seeing her, I was orbiting around her. Lara came into my life during a time when I had given up on the idea of being understood. I was still rebuilding after losing people I thought would always be there. My world had turned gray, and she walked in like color returning after a storm. We met at a conference. She worked in marketing. I handled brand strategy. One accidental conversation over coffee turned into long talks about dreams, second chances, and the fear of being alone. She told me she was tired of shallow people, tired of pretending. And I believed her. God, I believed every word. In the beginning, everything felt perfect. We'd spend nights talking until morning, laughing about nothing, sharing secrets like we'd known each other for years. She noticed things most people didn't: how I took my coffee, how I tapped my pen when I was thinking, how I went quiet when I missed my father. She said she admired that I didn't give up on people, even when they gave up on me. Looking back now, maybe that was her favorite weakness in me: my loyalty. There was this one night that still burned into my memory. We were sitting on my balcony, lights from the city below flickering like restless stars. She leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "You make me feel safe." And in that moment, I thought I had finally found home. It's strange how easily the heart confuses safety with illusion. Because that same night, when I told her I'd never let her down, she smiled, and something in her eyes flickered. It was small, barely there, but now I know it wasn't love I saw. It was calculation. Back then, I would have sworn she was the real thing. I introduced her to my friends, trusted her with parts of me I'd never revealed before. My friends used to say, "She's too perfect, Darian." I'd laugh it off, calling them jealous. Maybe I wanted her perfection to be real so badly that I ignored the tremors under the surface. The late replies, the sudden work trips, the way she avoided eye contact when I talked about the future. But love blinds you in the most poetic way. It makes you rewrite warning signs into love notes. I told myself she was just tired, busy, stressed, anything but unfaithful. Because I'd rather doubt my intuition than accept that the person I trusted the most could be the one who would shatter me. Looking back, it's almost ironic. I thought I was saving her from her pain. I didn't realize she was quietly creating mine. It started small, so small that I almost convinced myself it was nothing. The kind of changes you only notice when you love someone too much to question them. Lara used to text me first thing every morning, a simple "good morning, sunshine," followed by a heart. But soon, those messages came later, and then not at all. When I'd ask if she was okay, she'd smile and say she was just tired, overworked, buried in deadlines. I wanted to believe her, because believing her was easier than facing the thought that maybe, just maybe, something was shifting. There were nights she'd say she needed space, that she was exhausted and wanted to rest. I'd respect that, say goodnight, and stare at my ceiling, wondering why her rest always seemed to last until 2 a.m., when she'd finally come online again. I told myself I was overthinking, that maybe love means trusting even when things don't make sense. But deep down, a quiet unease had started growing inside me. Like a splinter buried under the skin, small, invisible, but impossible to ignore. I remember one night, I called her just to hear her voice. She didn't pick up. 2 hours later, she sent a photo, her working late selfie in an office that somehow looked too perfect. Her makeup flawless, lighting too soft, like it wasn't a work night, but a setup. I laughed it off, but something about that picture didn't sit right. The background wasn't her office. I knew because I'd been there. The walls weren't that color. The cracks widened after that. She started forgetting little things I'd told her, plans we'd made, moments we'd shared. It was like I was slowly becoming a stranger in her life, someone she kept on a shelf to pick up when convenient. My friends noticed before I did. One of them, Micah, said bluntly, "She's hiding something, man." I snapped at him, defensive, angry. I told him he didn't understand her like I did. But later that night, his words replayed in my head like an echo I couldn't silence. There's this thing about betrayal, it doesn't hit all at once. It drips slowly, moment by moment, until suddenly you're drowning in what you refuse to see. I started paying attention, the subtle shifts, the sudden need for privacy. Her laughter on calls that ended the second I walked in. I told myself it was paranoia, but the truth was whispering louder each day. One evening I reached for her phone when it buzzed on the table. Just instinct. She froze. Snatched it back so fast, it startled me. Her voice went sharp. Her face flushed. "Don't you trust me?" she asked. And I said I did. I said it like a reflex. But in that moment, something in me broke. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, hearing my own heartbeat in the silence. I realized that love isn't supposed to make you feel crazy. It isn't supposed to make you question your worth. Yet there I was questioning everything. And still, I stayed. Because I needed to believe there was a reason behind it all. I didn't know that the reason was about to destroy everything I thought was real. It was a Thursday night, the kind of night that feels too ordinary to change your life forever. I remember the air was heavy, a quiet chill that hinted something was coming. Lyra had told me she was staying late for an urgent project, the same line I'd heard too many times to still sting. But that night, something in my gut wouldn't rest. It wasn't jealousy. It was this calm knowing, like my soul had already seen what my eyes were about to. I drove to her office. I don't even know why. Maybe I wanted to prove myself wrong. Maybe I wanted to catch her there, working, so I could finally silence the voice inside me whispering that I'd been living in a lie. But when I reached the building, the lights on her floor were off. I sat in the car for a minute, my heart pounding, telling myself to just go home. I didn't. Her car wasn't there either. I called her, no answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. And that's when I saw her reflection, not in that office window, but in a restaurant across the street. The kind we used to go to with soft jazz and dim golden lights. She was sitting at a corner table, laughing with him. A man I recognized, her colleague, the one she always mentioned with a casual smile like he meant nothing. For a second, my body froze. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. She leaned in close, her hand brushing his. The same touch that used to feel like home now looked like poison. I don't even remember getting out of the car. I just walked in, calm but shaking on the inside. The waiter looked at me like he knew. Maybe he'd seen this kind of heartbreak before. When she saw me, her smile died mid-laugh. Her eyes widened, guilt flickering like lightning brief, but unmistakable. The man turned around, confused. I didn't yell, didn't curse. I just looked at her and said quietly, "So this is what late nights look like now?" Her voice trembled when she tried to explain, but the words tangled into excuses. "It's not what it looks like," she said. The classic line, the one every betrayer rehearses in their head before the storm hits. But it was exactly what it looked like. I could feel it in the way she avoided my eyes, in how her fingers trembled. In the silence between us that spoke louder than any confession, I left before she could lie again. I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I just walked out into the cold air, feeling my chest collapse in slow motion. In the car, I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my hands hurt. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red, like the world itself was bleeding with me. I realized love doesn't end with screaming, it ends in silence, in that single moment when truth finally kills the illusion. That night, Lyra lost my trust forever. But I didn't know yet that I was about to turn her betrayal into something far more powerful than revenge. I was going to turn it into the truth. The days after that night felt like walking through a fire I couldn't put out. Every message, every memory, Every promise echoed in my head like a ghost refusing to leave. Lyra tried calling. I didn't answer. She sent long texts, apologies, explanations, half-truths dressed as regret. I read them all in silence, realizing how easily love can turn into a language of manipulation. I didn't need to shout anymore. I didn't need to beg for the truth. I already had it. And I was done being the quiet one who just walks away. But I wasn't going to destroy her with chaos. That's what she'd expect. No. I wanted something cleaner, sharper. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. So I started collecting. Every message she ever sent me, every photo, every work excuse. I traced back the timeline, compared her stories with the facts, and piece by piece, her entire web of lies unraveled right in front of me. I learned she'd been using me to build connections with people in my circle clients. Investors, people she'd later pitch her own independent projects to. I wasn't her partner. I was her stepping stone. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me focused. I started preparing in silence. No revenge fueled by rage, just patience, precision, and calm execution. I reached out to the same people she had deceived through me, inviting them to a casual dinner I was hosting to celebrate a new deal. She didn't know. She thought I had vanished. When the night came, I walked into that room, dressed in composure. Lyra arrived with her usual poise, unaware of what was waiting for her. I greeted her with a calm smile, the kind that hides a storm behind it. We sat across from each other, and for a few seconds, the world felt frozen between us. Then I stood up and said, "Before we start, I want to show you something." I connected my phone to the screen behind me. One by one, messages, screenshots, and recordings appeared, her lies, her manipulations. Her words to me and to others, perfectly synced like a confession she'd unknowingly written for herself. The room fell silent. Her charm evaporated. People stared at her not with admiration anymore, but disgust. She tried to interrupt, saying I was twisting things, that I was being cruel. But this wasn't cruelty. This was clarity. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You taught me betrayal, Lyra, but I'm teaching you something better, truth. And truth doesn't shout. It exposes." Her face turned pale. Her voice broke. She left the room shaking, drowning in her own lies, and for the first time I felt no anger. Just peace. Walking out that night, I realized something. Revenge might feel good for a moment, but truth, it lives forever. It cuts quietly, deeply, and leaves no stain on your soul. I didn't ruin her life. I just handed her mirror back to her and let her see what she'd become. The night after everything came out, silence had never felt so loud. My phone buzzed, endlessly calls, messages, missed notifications, all from her. I didn't pick up. I didn't need to. There's a kind of silence that follows truth, the kind that makes the world stop pretending. That's where we both were now, standing in the ruins of what we once called love. 2 days later, she showed up at my apartment. I wasn't surprised. Betrayers always return to the place they broke, not out of guilt, but to see if the damage can still be undone. When I opened the door, she stood there in tears, real ones this time. No makeup, no charm. Just raw panic and desperation. "Please, Darian," she whispered. "You don't understand what you've done. You humiliated me." I looked at her for a long time. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns fast. Truth doesn't. "No, Lyra," I said quietly. "You humiliated yourself. I just stopped protecting your lies." She tried to grab my hand, pleading that we could fix this, that it was all a mistake, that she never meant to hurt me. But that's the thing about betrayal, it's never an accident. It's a choice made over and over again, until the truth finally catches up. She started yelling then, her voice breaking into fragments of pain and denial. "You ruined me," she shouted. "You ruined everything." I almost laughed out of cruelty, but disbelief. Because in her mind, the real crime wasn't what she did to me. It was that she got caught. I told her to leave. She wouldn't. So I turned away, closed the door, and let her screams fade into the hallway. For a moment I leaned against the door, eyes closed, feeling the weight of years lift off my chest. That's when it hit me, this strange peace that comes when you stop chasing closure. Sometimes you don't get closure. You just accept that some people destroy everything good because they can't stand to see someone love them purely. In the following weeks, her world unraveled. Clients dropped her, friends distanced themselves, and the image she'd built so carefully shattered. I didn't gloat. I didn't spread more. Truth was enough that did the work for me. People saw her for who she really was, and that was all I ever wanted. One night she texted me one last time, "You got what you wanted. I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long minute, then replied, "No, Lyra, I didn't want your destruction. I wanted my peace. You gave me both." After that, I blocked her number and never looked back. Not out of hate, but because I'd finally learned what real strength looks like. It's not in revenge. It's in walking away with your truth intact. They say karma comes quietly, but sometimes it walks through the front door wearing the face of your own consequences. For Lyra, it was losing everything she built on lies. For me, it was finally being free enough to start over without bitterness, without pretending, without her. It's strange how peace doesn't arrive with noise or fireworks. It comes quietly, like dawn seeping through broken blinds after a long night. That's how I felt in the weeks that followed. I didn't realize how much of myself I had lost until silence became comfortable again. There were no more lies to decode, no more explanations that twisted my mind. Just me, breathing, existing, healing. For the first time in years, I started living without trying to impress or prove anything. I went back to the small things that used to make me feel alive: early morning runs, late night music, sitting in coffee shops with no purpose other than to exist in the moment. People say healing happens slowly. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that it starts the moment you stop asking why. One morning, I found myself standing by the ocean, watching the waves drag pieces of driftwood back into the water. It felt symbolic, like the sea was teaching me something, no matter how broken something becomes. The tide always finds a way to smooth it out. I realized I didn't hate Lyra anymore. I didn't even pity her. I just saw her as part of a lesson I needed to learn. She was the storm that taught me how to build shelter within myself. People around me began to notice the change. Micah said, "You look lighter, man." Maybe I was. I had finally stopped carrying her mistakes as if they were mine. I stopped replaying what I could have done differently, because the truth is, love doesn't fail because one person isn't enough. Fails when the other person never intended to stay. I thought karma would look like her suffering, but it didn't. Karma looked like me, calm, grounded, and finally unbothered. It was waking up without that weight in my chest. It was realizing that closure isn't something someone gives you, it's something you give yourself when you choose peace over pain. Months later, I heard from someone that she had moved to another city. New job, new people, trying to start over. And you know what? I hoped she found what she was looking for. Because wishing her misery would only keep me chained to the past, I didn't want that anymore. I wanted freedom. And freedom doesn't coexist with bitterness. I learned something powerful through all this. Sometimes betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's just the universe editing out a character who was never meant to stay in your book. I once thought love was about holding on. Now I know it's about recognizing when it's time to let go. So if you're listening to this, if you've ever been broken by someone who said they'd never hurt you, remember this. The truth always comes back, no matter how long it hides. And when it does, it won't destroy you. It'll set you free. Because in the end, she turned love into betrayal, but I turned betrayal into the truth.